I'll never forget that phone call. You know, the kind of call that shakes you to your core, making your heart stop for a second. That's exactly what happened when my daughter, Sarah, called me one evening and said, "I gave them the keys. It's not your house anymore." I paused, trying to make sense of her words. It was like a punch to the gut. Not my house. I had lived there for over 40 years. The house where Sarah had taken her first steps, where we celebrated every birthday and where countless memories were made. To hear my own daughter say something like that? Well, it didn't just sting, it cut deep. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I stayed quiet on the phone, trying to process. The anger started bubbling up, but I didn't let it show. "You gave them the keys?" I asked, as calmly as I could manage. I had to know what she was talking about. "Yes, I did. They're moving in soon." "It's over, Mum. You're not getting the house back," she replied, almost as if she was relieved, like this was something she had been planning for a long time. My mind was racing. What was she talking about? I hadn't signed anything. I didn't agree to any deal. And yet here she was, telling me I no longer had control over my own home. I couldn't believe it. I mean, how could she do this to me? But I couldn't let her see how shaken I was. Instead, I took a deep breath and calmly replied, "You forgot one thing." She laughed, a little nervously, almost mocking me. "What are you talking about?" That's when I started to laugh. I wasn't sure if it was out of anger or disbelief, but the truth is, I knew something Sarah didn't. You see, she thought she had all the power. She thought she had control of my house, that she could just walk in and take it from me. But there was one thing she hadn't counted on: the locks. I had already taken care of that. The locks on my door weren't the ones Sarah thought they were. She had given the keys to the wrong people, and the people who thought they were getting the house, they didn't know that they had been set up for a rude awakening. I could feel the tension building up inside me. I wasn't just going to stand there and let this happen. I was going to make sure Sarah understood that this was my house and no one could take it from me. The phone call had left me stunned, but I knew that was just the beginning. This wasn't just about a house. It was about my relationship with Sarah. Something had been off for months now, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Looking back, I should have seen the signs sooner. But I guess I was too busy holding on to what I had to notice that she was slipping away. I remember the last time we had a real conversation about the house. It was a cold, rainy afternoon. Sarah had come over, and we were sitting at the kitchen table, the steam from our tea curling in the air between us. She had been talking more about moving on and new chapters than I cared to hear. But that day, her words were different. They were sharper. "Mum, the house needs so much work," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. "I can't keep putting money into this place. You're just going to have to accept that we need to let go of it." I was taken aback. Let go of it? This house had been my home for over 4 decades. I wasn't ready to just let it slip through my fingers like some worn-out pair of shoes. I told her that much, but Sarah didn't listen. She just nodded, avoiding my eyes. I knew she wasn't hearing me, but I couldn't figure out why. Then, a few weeks later, she asked if I could downsize. I didn't know what that meant at first, but when she mentioned selling the house and moving smaller, something inside me snapped. I wasn't ready to leave, not like that. Still, I didn't press the issue. I was stubborn, maybe too stubborn. But something about the way Sarah had been acting felt like she was trying to force me into a decision I didn't want to make. She was acting like I was a burden. And then, this phone call. I gave them the keys, she had said, like it was no big deal, like I didn't have a say in my own life. But here's the thing. Sarah had no idea what I'd been doing behind the scenes. While she was planning this whole thing, thinking she had control, I'd been quietly taking steps of my own. I wasn't going to let her just take everything away from me without a fight. The more I thought about the phone call, the angrier I became. The way Sarah had spoken to me, like I was just some old woman who didn't have a clue. She had never asked for my permission. She just acted as if she could make decisions for me, without any thought about what that house meant. It wasn't just a building, it was my life, my memories, and my legacy. The next day, I decided to confront her. I knew Sarah. She wasn't going to back down easily, but I wasn't going to let her push me around either. I needed answers. So, I called her. She didn't answer. I wasn't surprised. I left a message, my voice steady but firm. Sarah, we need to talk. Now. When she finally called back, I could tell from the tone in her voice that she was already defensive. What's the problem, Mum? I already told you, the house is done. It's over. Over? I almost couldn't believe my ears. You think it's over? You think I'm just going to let you take everything from me without a fight? My voice was rising now, but I couldn't stop it. I want to know exactly what's going on. Who did you give the keys to? What deal did you make? There was a long pause on the other end of the line, then a soft sigh. It's not a big deal, Mum. You're just not getting it. She sounded exhausted, like she was trying to convince herself more than me. You're right, Sarah. I don't get it. I don't get how you could betray me like this. You didn't even bother to talk to me about it. You just signed away my life. I was furious now. The betrayal stung like a fresh wound, but I couldn't let her know that. I had to stay calm, keep my cool, or I would lose control of the situation. You didn't just give the keys to some random person, did you? I asked, already knowing the answer, but I wanted her to say it. Mum, it's done, she repeated, as if that was enough of an explanation. I wasn't done, though, not by a long shot. I had a plan, and Sarah had no idea what was coming. She thought she had the upper hand, but the truth was she had underestimated me. I wasn't going to let Sarah's words haunt me. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about standing up for myself. I had worked too hard for this house, too many years of my life invested in it to let her throw it away like it was just another piece of property. I wasn't going to let her think she could take control of my life. The next day, I made a few calls of my own. First, to the locksmith. I'd been worried for a while, sensing something was coming, so I had the locks changed a few months ago, just in case. Not that I had told anyone, especially Sarah. She thought she had all the power, but I knew better. The locksmith confirmed that the new locks were in place. They were completely different from the ones Sarah had been given. I smiled. She had no idea. Then I reached out to the people who had supposedly taken over the house. I didn't know much about them, but I knew they were the ones Sarah had sold the house to. I called them up and arranged to meet. When I arrived at the address they'd given me, I saw a young couple standing outside, looking nervous. They looked confused, and I didn't blame them. They had been given the wrong keys. "Hello," I said, my voice firm but calm. "I'm Ethel Montgomery. This is my house." The couple looked at me with wide eyes, clearly surprised. One of them, a woman in her 30s, spoke up. "But we've already signed everything with Sarah. We were told the house was ours." "Well," I replied with a smirk, "Sarah forgot one little detail. The locks were changed months ago. You've been handed keys that don't work." They stood there in stunned silence. The woman glanced nervously at her partner, and for a moment I thought they might just turn around and leave. But they didn't. Instead, they asked if they could speak to Sarah. I shook my head. "You'll need to speak to her lawyer. I'm not giving up my home. Not like this." The couple left, promising to sort things out. As I watched them go, I felt a sense of relief wash over me, but I knew this wasn't over. If Sarah thought she could walk away without consequences, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. The day after my confrontation with the couple, I was a bundle of nerves, but I knew I couldn't let my guard down. It was a quiet morning, the kind where the sun barely peeked over the horizon, and I sat in my old armchair by the window, watching the world slowly wake up outside. But inside, I was still reeling from everything that had happened. The phone call, the keys, the lies. It all felt like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. Sarah finally called me back late in the afternoon. I could hear the frustration in her voice before she even said a word. "What did you do, Mum?" she asked, her voice sharp, like she couldn't believe I'd actually gone through with it. I took a deep breath. "I did what I had to do, Sarah. You can't just come into my life and make decisions like this. I don't care what paperwork you signed or who you think you've been talking to. This house isn't yours to give away." I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't going to let her guilt-trip me into believing this was all for my own good. She needed to understand that what she had done wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal. "I don't understand," she said, sounding small, like the anger had drained out of her. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you were just too old to handle everything here." "Too old?" I echoed, the sting of her words cutting deep. But I didn't let it show. "Sarah, I may be older, but that doesn't mean I'm weak or helpless. You should have talked to me. You should have treated me like an adult. You thought you could just take everything from me, but you're wrong." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and when Sarah finally spoke, her voice was filled with a mix of regret and realization. "I was wrong, Mum. I didn't think it through. I'm sorry." And that was the moment I knew things could change. It wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about rebuilding trust. But more than that, it was about me standing up for myself when I had every reason to feel defeated. I wasn't the helpless woman she thought I was, and I wasn't going to let her push me around. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and I worked through the mess she had caused. She helped me with the legal side of things, making sure everything was squared away. But the damage to our relationship wasn't easily fixed. Still, I knew one thing for sure. My house was mine, and I would never let it or my dignity be taken from me again. I sat back in my chair that night, looking out at the house that had been my home for so long. It wasn't just the walls and the windows, it was the life I'd built here. And no matter what happened next, that was something no one could take away.